Hi, everyone. My name is Les Velez, and I welcome you to the Opus interview series. Opus, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support, is a 501c3 nonprofit organization founded in 1994 by myself and Dr. Eugene Lipson. Our mission, simply put, is to help people having paranormal experiences. I'm the co-founder and chairman, and for more information on Opus, please go to our website at opusnetwork.org. I am excited, thrilled, all those superlative words about having a friend, a colleague, and also an Opus advisory board member, Yvonne Smith, with us today. Yvonne became concerned with victims of post-traumatic stress disorder in the late 1980s, and in 1990, after 2 years of study and 1,000 hours of internship, received her hypnotherapist certification from the California Hypnosis Motivation Institute, the only such accredited institution in the United States, by the way. In 1990, when she opened her office, she immediately began to work with PTSD victims, assisting them and encouraging them to work through and cope with their PTS experiences. Many of her subjects were and are referred to her by physicians and psychologists who believe Yvonne's expertise can benefit their patients. And I know that's a big thing to have that kind of credentials behind you and people supporting you in that way, and you supporting the experiencers. Observing that many of her subjects were describing a pattern of alien abduction and other close encounter experiences. In 1991, Yvonne founded CERO, the Close Encounter Research Organization, later renamed Close Encounter Resource Organization, which I think is more appropriate.
Right.
So, which provides personal attention and maintains active monthly support group meetings by which Yvonne is able to remain close and supportive. At CERO meetings, PTSD subjects may share their thoughts and feelings about their unusual experiences and any continuing difficulties. CERO gained national and international recognition since its founding, and Yvonne and CERO have been favorably mentioned by name in books by several authors in their discussions of regression hypnotherapy to ameliorate PTSD symptoms. One of few hypnotherapists internationally recognized in this unique field. In addition to her continuous TV appearances, radio interviews, and conference lecture requests, Yvonne is frequently asked to call upon her CERO experience and review and critique various authors' manuscripts before they are published. And I think you've also been involved with motion picture, doing types of support and teaching people about the subject in
Yeah.
general. CERO celebrated its 20th year in 2012 with a private presentation by Fire in the Sky author Travis Walton and one of his fellow workers, Steve Price, who was a witness to Travis's abduction 35 years ago. And matter of fact, I had Travis and Steve at my house. This was shortly at, well, it was, gosh, I don't know how many years ago now, but he was telling me some pretty interesting things over breakfast. And,
Oh, yeah.
so let me back you way up. Okay, before the 80s even. How did you get involved with this topic?
Well, um, just thinking back, gosh, I'm in the process of two writing projects, and I was thinking back. I started writing about when I became interested, and it was really funny. My mother asked me to come with her to, at the time, this was in the late 80s, we had the Whole Life Expo all around,
Mhm.
the country. This time was near our home in Pasadena, California. So my mother was into, metaphysics. She was psychic, and and she was familiar with Bud Hopkins, and I was familiar. I saw the name before, and she said, "Do you want to go?" And I said, "Well, sure." So we went, and that was the first time I had watched Bud in, lecturing about his work, and watching the I mean, looking at the slides and looking at the drawings that his clients did, and then the subject, and I was mesmerized. I thought, oh my gosh, are these people really experiencing this? So it was after that I began to look into hypnotherapy. I had known about hypnotherapy. I wanted to study it to work with cancer patients because there'd been cancer in my family. Family members passed away because of cancer, and I know hypnotherapy can really benefit cancer patients. So that was my first goal. But I did attend hypnotherapy college eventually, and I went to my very first UFO conference. Uh, I believe it was, yeah, it was right after I graduated. And it was and you might remember this, it was at the Aladdin in
Hmm.
Las Vegas.
Okay.
And oh gosh, there were so many speakers there. It was very controversial. It was, oh my gosh, if I could remember the names of the, I'll think of it. I should have had it written down. I didn't know if I was going to talk about this, but that's when I met Ann Druffel, who was,
Mm.
a longtime researcher, and others in the field. And I introduced myself as a hypnotherapist. And so began receiving referrals. I think the first one was from Ann Druffel. We were actually next door neighbors up there in Pasadena. And so from there, it snowballed. I didn't plan. You know, I I celebrated my 30th anniversary in my work as a hypnotherapist with abduction cases this past January.
Congratulations. Wow.
Thank you. I can't believe all that time's gone by. But I couldn't have said this years ago, but I really feel now that I was directed to do this work. Now that I know, I'm familiar with how the aliens work and how they orchestrate things and how they orchestrate relationships and all that. I didn't say it years ago because I thought this is going to sound too woo-woo crazy.
Hmm.
People think we're crazy anyway. Now, in my ripe old age, I don't care what people say. I don't care what people think. And I feel truly that I was put on this path because it's not anything I really had planned. I thought,
Hmm.
my aunt and uncle had passed away from cancer, and I thought, gee, I'd be able to give back to people by helping them, through the cancer process and through their treatments and all that. And I did start working with cancer patients, but then I received, you know, referrals and cases about UFO abduction, and pretty soon it snowballed. And then I was doing interviews for local newspaper, and then the radio. And I just feel when you're on your path and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, doors just open up. You know, it just flows.
Absolutely. It's funny that you mention it that way because I've been doing this now since basically 91, and
Mhm.
founding Opus in 94, um, and working with abductees, experiencers, if you will. Um, and there's been times when I've said, okay, that's enough. I'm going to step back, and
Mhm.
immediately I start getting phone calls. I need help. I need this. And so it's like, okay, I hear you. I'm supposed to be
Yeah,
doing this, and
it's
and that's it.
it, that's how it works, Les, because that's over the
Yeah.
years. That's what I've done. We get burnt out because we put our heart and soul into it, and it feels like we're just turning our wheels. And I felt, I'm going to step back. I'm going to not do so much. And the moment I think that, same thing. I remember getting two calls and this was in the 90s, from talk shows. I was to
Mhm.
ask me to fly to New York this was after I decided, I'm not going to do so much now. I'm going to pay attention to my family and, try to pay
Right.
the mortgage. And
Yes.
that's exactly what happens. And, I got calls from clients. And that's when I said to you, okay, all right, I understand, it's like you're being pulled back. And those of us who are meant to be in this field, will be in it. And those people, like I've seen it over the years, that get into this field for all the wrong reasons,
Mhm.
fame and fortune. Well, we're
Right.
still waiting for the fortune, right?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Exactly.
they,
Not-
they weed the wrong people weed themselves out. So, it, you received messages as I did, is that this is what we're supposed to be doing.
ab-
So,
Absolutely, absolutely. It is interesting how one, gets into it. I mean, for me, when I was 11 years old, I saw this object. This is when I lived in Connecticut, and soon thereafter, I started reading books on UFOs, and you know, then life got in the way. You got married, have kids, and
yeah.
and then I moved from Connecticut to California, and I picked up the San Jose Mercury News, and Stanton Freeman was going to talk about UFOs and the government cover-up. So I went to see his lecture and expecting to see a handful of people there. Well, the auditorium was packed. MUFON had a table in the foyer. I became a member. I started to get the journal, and that wasn't enough. And so I became a field investigator. And then I'm dealing with people not only seeing objects, but also supposedly being involved with the aliens that were
Right.
in these objects. And so
Right.
that's how this all started for me. And so that I'm always curious about how people that get into this field, how they go through this process and end up in the loony bin with all the rest of us people.
But lately, I think it's slow, and we still have a uphill battle. But with the reports coming out from the military pilots,
Mhm.
we are being vindicated. It's like people that have never even thought about looking up in the sky or any of this are kind of saying, "Gee, they're pilots. They're in our Navy, and they're." Um, and I think it's a good thing, even though I feel the report, I think we all knew. I think those of us have been in here, been doing this for a while, they're not going to admit, uh, oh, yeah, this is alien craft, and, but it's at least it's getting the general public to start thinking out of the box. And we do have an uphill battle. I was talking to my support group members, and the next step is going to be abduction, because that is very central to what's going on. But we've got to get people used to the fact that, there are strange things flying around. Our government has admitted they don't know, a certain percentage, or how many was over 100,
Mhm.
they couldn't explain. And, but those flying saucers, those UFOs, there's somebody in there piloting them, and they are coming down and engaging with us. They're not just up there in the sky. They're here for a reason. They've been engaging with us for a very long time. But that's going to take a lot more big step forward, when we start talking about abduction.
Well, you raise a good point here, that the fact that this UAP report that came out from the Pentagon, the task force, is a first step, I think,
Yeah,
among many that I think are going to come. I heard that Congressman Andre Carson, who's head of the subcommittee, intelligence subcommittee, is planning to have hearings, and That's really positive. So,
That's
eh,
very
and
positive.
then, and then the next obvious step after we figure out, okay, yeah, we're not alone. It's not the Russians or the Chinese. It's not us. It's got to be somebody else. And who better to ask the question of than the people that are having experiences with these entities, these non-human intelligences.
Yeah.
And so it's going to come to the fore. There's no question about it.
I've always said, I've been saying this for the last few years, that there's been a lot of talk about, disclosure, and it's, that the word's been kicked around a lot. I'm not expecting our government, to really come forward with that. It's going to be the abductees, experiencers driving this. It's the people that are coming forward now because they're tired of living alone. They're tired of having this secret. They want, they want to talk about it. And people that are, with very responsible careers, and they have families, they're paying mortgage, um, people, the general public is going to be very surprised when more and more people start coming forward and admitting, yeah, I've been having this experience since I was a child.
Yeah.
So I really think the movement is going to be, started by the experiencers that already has.
And working with your Zero support group, have they been telling you any things that are coming up in the future? Things that we might be concerned about.
You know, my last book, Chosen, the one with the white cover,
Hmm.
it's like Chosen #2, but it has the white cover. And I added more cases, and I added in the second part of the book because I thought it was really important. I was hearing from so many people who don't know each other saying to me, coming into my office one after another, new people don't know each other. They don't know what I've been hearing, but saying to me, I feel an anxiety lately. I feel like I'm supposed to do something and I
Hmm.
don't know what it is. I've heard from many of my clients who've had careers, six-figure careers, that say, I'm not happy with what I'm doing anymore. The money is, it doesn't mean anything. One of them said that, he had to start because he, very well off, that he had the means to start helping Mother Earth, with healing herself, doing things for the environment. And because that's what the aliens have been telling abductees for many, many years, that we are not taking care of our planet, that we've got to improve, we've got to raise ourselves spiritually. Um, and now with so much going on in the world, I mean, so much turmoil, I think they've been right. And so the abductees have been telling me that they feel there's something coming. Now, it was during the real, the 2016 election with Trump and all that. It was just, turmoil there. And I asked the abductees, is it because of the, election happening? And they said, that's part of it, but more, something else. And then COVID came, and they told me, yeah, that's part of it.
Yeah.
Oh, but there's still something else. So, and that's what they've been feeling. They're still feeling this way. It's just that so many have said, I'm supposed to do something. I think I'm supposed to talk about my experiences. And, so they're coming to me to get information, to see what's hidden. Am I not remembering something, or did I just dream it, or, did I make it up? So hearing about that from so many people. And then, we've had discussions in our support group meetings about it. So I don't know. Nobody is saying, okay, on this particular date, this is going to happen. Do you remember
Mhm.
when we were going into the year 2000? Then it was the big year 2012. People
Right.
thought the earth, the world was going to blow up. But I feel I'm really paying attention because none of the abductees are giving any kind of date, but they're all
Yeah.
feeling the same.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I've noticed too in our online support group for Opus is that they are all feeling something. They have no specific date, and some of them talk about tsunamis, talk about earthquakes. They talk about
yeah.
volcanoes, things of that nature. Earth changes, if you will, that are probably going to be coming. And even one of them talked about this thing that's going to go on with the sun that's going to cause some real issues.
Are you talking
Uh,
about like flare? What do they
yeah,
call
yeah,
them? What?
solar
I
flares.
heard solar flares. Yeah.
Right.
I heard that too. I haven't been hearing about that too much lately, but
Mhm.
I mean, so many have told me the same thing, but what they're telling you, earth change. Well, I think it's happening now. Look what's happening around the world with earthquakes and
Mhm.
flooding and,
Mhm.
the volcanoes.
Yeah.
I went out several months ago and bought a portable generator. I've never
Mm.
done that before, but I
Mhm.
have that, and I have the propane tanks.
Mhm.
I bought four of them, and my sister thought I was crazy. I just said, "Look, you're going to thank me or something. So let's just be prepared." Plus, we have earthquakes here, in Southern
Yeah.
California,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
and they're happening other places too. But it does not hurt to be prepared. I mean, I bought extra food, extra water, and if anything, okay, we're prepared for an earthquake,
Mhm.
um, but it just a little unnerving because you think, oh, okay, COVID, it's wiped out people, that must be
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
but yet it wasn't. So it's an interesting lesson. You are getting the same information that I've been getting
Yep.
from the experiencers, and that's why I felt an urgency, and I called it to put the information in the second part of my book. And I did hear from people saying, yeah, I've been feeling that way, and even a couple of my cousins, who they know what I do, but we weren't even talking about UFOs. We went out to lunch, and then one of them said, "Yeah, I've been just feeling really anxious and antsy, and so I don't know, something in the air."
Yeah.
And then
Uh,
I'm not talking about UFO, maybe the UFOs. I mean, I don't know.
I'm curious, as far as your group is concerned, have these people also become more telepathic in nature? Have they uh, had uh, been able to remote view things? Has anybody talked about that in the group?
Some of them do. Some of them will. Excuse me, I've got
Sure.
allergy.
Oh,
Um,
yeah,
allergies.
I know all about that.
And some of them uh, are able to remote view, which I find fascinating. I could say all of my serial members are psychic,
Hmm.
to a different degree. But I've always wondered what came first, the chicken or the egg. I mean, we're all psychic to some degree,
Hmm.
but once they have an abduction experience, their psychic abilities are enhanced. Then I've spoken to um, people who've had, you know, like near death experiences,
Hmm.
really terrible accidents. That's sometimes why they come to me. And it's the same thing. You know,
Yeah.
they become healers. I mean, a lot of my group members are healers. One group member went from being an engineer to being a psychic card reader. I mean, just
Hmm.
totally opposite ends of the spectrum. Um, but that was, her calling. just like this is our calling. So yeah, I would say after that experience, I mean, they are very psychic. I mean, um, a couple of them told me before I think it was, I had a surgery. I forget
Mhm.
how many years, but um, and they couldn't, they could tell, but they say something was wrong with my stomach,
Mm.
and just things like that where people can scan someone's body and say, you should go see your doctor, maybe and ask them about this or that. Very, I mean,
I
it's fascinating.
I totally believe. Matter of fact, I have a very similar story. One of the people in our group has been an engineer all his life, and now he's a healer. And he healed me. I had a back situation going on that was nagging, and it was very, very difficult to get the day started. And honest to God, and he did this remotely. He did this remotely.
Oh,
And
amazing.
he lives
That's
up
amazing.
he lives up in Vancouver, and I'm here in Texas. So it's like
I mean, it's
amazing.
great. It is amazing. I mean, people that have these gifts, um, I think really admire, and they want to use it for the good,
Mhm.
to help people. So, yeah, I would say they're all psychic.
Yeah, yeah. It's and I agree with you. It's the chicken and the egg thing. It seems
Yeah.
like even if they had some innate ability beforehand, that it seems to be enhanced after an experience.
Yes.
But is that something that's manipulated way back in generations down the line, where and of course these things are
Mhm.
generational, and
Oh, yes. I mean, most of them begin in childhood.
mhm,
It's intergenerational. That's one of the books that I'm working on is the family connection.
mhm,
So it very well, because they do manipulate uh, our DNA. They implant people. We still aren't sure exactly what these implants are doing. We speculate a lot, but um, it could be that they've tweaked something in these abductees since childhood.
oh yeah. So now you've written a couple of books already. One you mentioned already, Chosen, in the second edition already. That's great. And then the first one, I believe, no, your first one was Chosen. And then,
Chosen.
yeah, and then in 2013, I believe you came out with a book called Coronado, which is
Right,
which is
right.
fascinating to me. I read a little bit of it. And I didn't have enough time to finish it all, but can you tell the listeners here a little bit about that case? And the full
Well,
title of the book is Coronado, the President and the Secret Service and Alien Abductions.
yeah.
That's
Oh,
what a
that
title.
case
That's a great title.
is back in March of 1994. During the 90s, uh, the triad organization, they were putting on conferences throughout the United States, and this
Hmm.
was funded by Bigelow at the time.
Hmm.
And because he was very, very interested in those early days, very interested in UFOs, and
Bob
so
Bigelow.
I was
Yeah. Hmm.
by Bigelow. I was one
Yeah.
of the speakers, regular speakers, and I spoke with Dr. John Mack and David Jacobs and Bud Hawkins. We all spoke in several of them together. And this time it was in Coronado Island is in San Diego County, Southern California. And so that was about a 2-3 hour drive from where I live. So the conference organizers asked me to be the MC this time. And so I was thrilled. Several of my serial members wanted to come down because they knew other abductees were coming in like they do to these conferences. They want to meet other people. And they thought, oh, this is fun. We can all caravan down there and, and stay for the weekend. Well, during that whole weekend, it was a dozen serial members that were abducted throughout that conference. And it was because I was so busy being the MC. I had one, some of them coming up to me in between the speakers and saying, I don't feel well. I don't know if something happened. And of course, I wasn't putting it together because I was so busy with the program. But we spoke later, and what's really strange is one of the serial members, her brother and his wife, purposely, he bought tickets for that conference weeks in advance, paid in full. He was so excited. When he came down and it was time to go to the first, the opening in the first lecture, he did not want to go near the conference. He took his wife shopping. So he spent all that money. And that's what his sister said, what is wrong with him? My God, she goes, he just doesn't want to come in. He didn't want to go near the conference center. Well, it turned out is because he and his wife had an experience the night before. And he actually saw her being levitated from the bed. And so after the conference was over, I started doing sessions with everybody. And it wasn't until 2013, that I was able to publish the book. It took that long. And like you say, life happens,
Yeah.
and I just didn't have a chance to do it all. And but at the same time, that weekend at the time was President Bill Clinton. He was on the island, and when everybody was arriving to the hotel and on the island, they were noticing all these big black SUVs and men with suits and sunglasses. And it was just, it was very strange. Things didn't occur to any of us until really way later. I remember walking through the Del Coronado and I had my badge on, UFO, whatever, triad UFO conference. And I see these two Secret Service walking towards me. They look like twins. The suits and the sunglasses. And I thought, gosh, I wonder what they think of, we're all here. They know we're here. And what the strangest part of it is that one of my colleagues, he's a lawyer, and he said, what's really strange, Yvonne? Usually when there's other conferences or events happening, they usually want to clear those out for when the president's coming or the president's here. And I knew he was right, because I remember when Obama was vacationing in Hawaii, this couple they were going to have their wedding, but they asked the wedding to be moved. He felt so bad. He went over and apologized to the bride and groom. Which,
that's nice. Yeah.
And I thought, wow, he's right. Why were we able to have the conference there while it's like the whole island was on lockdown, And there's the Navy SEALs train there. It's a military island. And so it's almost like as if the aliens were just flipping their nose at them going, oh, what we could do, while you guys are all here. And because, the ship was described as very, very large, different levels. And my impression was that they planned this. They planned to abduct several people because they knew we were all together. So they had like one big smorgasbord there, to be able to take people.
Did they mention anything about the shape of the ship? Was it a triangular ship or saucer shape?
I think saucer shape. It was a classic saucer shape. Yeah, it wasn't triangular, but there were different levels on it. It was huge. So they planned this. And so a couple of people came up with implants and marks on their bodies. And I'm amazed. I mean, well, while I was writing the book, I was still traveling to, up north in different areas to continue doing the sessions
Hmm.
because there were so many people involved.
Wow.
And hopefully, I'm hoping to have maybe a documentary made about this case because it's a very good case. People talk about, oh, why are they always by themselves and claiming this? Well, no, we have many, multiple witness cases, as you know.
Yeah.
Here we have about 12 people. So that information needs to be put out, uh, but to realize that, this could happen to anybody.
You know, and it's true. I wish you the best of luck on putting a documentary together for that, because those are the kind of cases when you do have multiple witnesses, multiple experiencers involved, that it has much more credibility than a single one, a person telling their story. But
Absolutely.
nevertheless, it's phenomenal. I think that I could just see it now, the documentary, and you have the Secret Service guys running around and President Clinton flitting off to the side. Of course, he probably had somebody sitting in that meeting recording the whole thing, so he probably got to hear the whole thing
It
eventually.
was just, but it was really funny because, some of the abductees said, oh my God, they're here for us.
Yeah,
they got a little nervous. They're going to be captured something, you
yeah.
know.
I, I
Um,
I tell you, those guys are they don't fool around. I remember seeing Reagan. He visited Fairfield, Connecticut, which is where I used to live, and he was running for election. And Ghostbusters was the big theme back then in those days, and
oh yeah,
so so the Secret Service had you go through a line, and I, for whatever reason, I wanted to talk to this one Secret Service guy to ask him a question. And he says, get back in line. And so I
oh
said, but I just want to, he says, get back in line. And I think the
yeah,
third time it was like he was started to reach for something. And I said, okay, okay.
yeah. They're pretty serious.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, yeah. They don't fool around. They don't fool around. But
no,
yeah. So anyway, that Coronado case is a humdinger. I mean, that's
thank you.
something I would love to see that portrayed in a documentary or a regular film. I mean,
Or just
that's
a feature film. I'm putting it out there in the
mhm,
universe. I
yeah,
think the case needs to be known.
yeah,
Because there's so many, it's very involved. And I'm glad that, it took, like I said, that was in 1994 and it
yeah,
wasn't published till 2013.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, these historical cases have a lot of meaning too, and they
yes,
shouldn't be overlooked. That's for sure. So actually first and now your second edition of the book, Chosen.
yeah.
That's an interesting book as well, with the cases that you have in there. But I was wondering about the hybrid part of it.
Mhm.
Um, what is your take on this hybrid program, or have you met a hybrid, and how do you know that this person is a hybrid?
Gosh, I just talked about this in another interview I did last week. I couldn't have said this 20 years ago, but I have to go with where the research is taking me lately. And I have talked to abductees who feel that they have come across hybrids here on Earth. When you pass by them, you wouldn't even notice that there's anything different about them. But they say when you have a conversation with them, there's just something in their eyes. They could really read your mind,
Hmm.
and they're just different. Sometimes the way they speak is a little different, but not so much not so noticeable that people are going to stop and and look and but those hybrids, they have to go somewhere. I had a case working with a case the other day in regression, and she was told that two of her children have been taken onto another planet. so they're not here, but others are here and they're coming down here. I had a very strange experience in Roswell, and myself and another speaker, this little boy, he was about 10 years old. He had kind of strange hair, it's almost like it was kind of bushy, um, and it was my dear friend and colleague Ron Regier. He and I speak at
Oh yeah,
Roswell every year.
I know
So
Ron.
he was speaking upstairs, and he had that little boy in his lecture first. And then I was speaking downstairs in the video room, and this little boy was sitting by himself in the front row, and he's looking at all my slides and everything. And I started taking questions afterwards, and he raised his hand, and it was the way he asked the question. It wasn't like, he didn't sound like a 10-year-old boy would ask a question. He was talking about, he was asking me about the triangle marks, and if we talked to the scientists say this and they say that. I mean, he was like, and I'm trying to follow him what he was talking about, and I forget what the question was, but I think I was so stunned, and it was the way he was speaking. So when my time was over, everybody got up, and this he had noticed him, and she actually followed him out of the museum and tried to take a picture of him. So later, Ron came up to me in the, where we have our book table, and he said, "Did you have a little boy in your lecture?" I said, "Yes," and he felt the same way, that there was something very different about him. So and I've heard this from other people in conferences, that they feel that they come across these hybrids at conferences. Of course, that wouldn't make sense.
Sure.
We want to see what's going on and what we're talking about. And so these perfected hybrids, we can't tell. Now, what's the end game, with all of this? And I feel that the hybridization program, I felt this for a long time, is very central to the alien agenda. I mean, it's continuing, and nothing's changed in the 30 years that I've been doing this. People are still being shown their children, and but as they come down to live with us, what is the purpose? Like my friend and colleague David Jacobs feels that they're going to be here to kind of take us over.
Yeah.
And I think his latest book is Walking Among Us, I believe. Yeah. And I read it, and it's a little unnerving, and you think, well, it's like almost what came out in Regression, because Jesse said, "I want to know if this is real, so I don't want to contaminate it in any way by telling them." And when Jesse and I flew to Knoxville, Tennessee, and he was just typical, person, taking care of his family, hardworking man. When we did the regressions, his conscious memory was exactly the same as Jesse's conscious memory. And then when we did the regression, I didn't even know if he was going to be going into hypnosis. I mean, because I just said, "You have to just relax and, let me do this." Well, it took a long time. And I thought nothing is happening. And then all of a sudden he says he and Jesse are walking towards the man, and the man had something in his hand, and he at the boys. Well, one of the boys said a hatchet, the other one said an axe. Well, they're the same.
Yeah.
It was almost a blackout period. They touch you with an instrument, and the person blacks out, or they're paralyzed. Well, their description of going into the house, of course, turned into a UFO. And Jesse was escorted to the left of the craft, and John was escorted to the right. And Jesse had all these experiments done on him, and he was screaming and crying. And John was very concerned, and John said, I want to know how my brother is. And he said, but they just told me he's all right. He's going to be all right. He goes, but they're not talking. I could just hear them, and so we know it's telepathic. And then when he described, John didn't describe tall Ren described, he said he looks like a big bug. I got chills because I'm thinking, oh my God.
Big bug.
And it turned out, of course, it was the praying mantis, but John didn't know. But when he was describing it, and then he drew it for me afterwards, and it was, and I use it in my lecture to say it's the praying mantis. So it was just that everything matched. Everything matched with the brothers. And so we sat down after. I did 2 sessions while I was there, and I sat down with his mother and father and the brothers, and his mom would tell me, oh, Johnny would always tell me that he could fly. And he told me his hypnosis, his friend, he said he feels something in his tummy, and his friend was telling them you could fly. And he was teaching him how to fly on the craft. So his mother remembered all through when they were, young boys like that Johnny would always, oh, Mom, I could fly. And I thought that was so interesting because she didn't know any of the details of anything. So when I was flying back, I was looking out the window of the plane and thinking, oh my God, this really is happening. Because you always had this little doubt in your mind, gosh, because this is so fantastic what people are describing. And like I said, this is back in the 90s, early 90s. But that case really put it on the map for me. That's when I knew, oh my God, what I'm doing is I have a lot of responsibility. And that's the case that I remember, all the details. And later on, the Encounter show, which was on in the 90s, they flew me to Tennessee because they found out about the case. And we did it on camera, and they really put a nice segment together about that case. And sometimes, I would use it, I would show the audience that segment. And, it was a fast segment, but it covered a lot because there's so much to it. They both came away with implants. John has one in his ear still, and Jesse had his removed in the late 80s, and it's been through a lot of.
Who removed that? Was that Lear, Dr. Lear, that removed it?
Oh no, that was way before Dr. Lear came on scene. It was a doctor who still wants to be anonymous.
Yeah,
but,
okay, that's understandable.
But we had pictures of the surgery and everything, and which is really interesting. I mean, I'm looking now for a surgeon. We need a surgeon for people who want to have these removed.
Right.
We don't need his name. We just need a board certified surgeon, since we lost, Roger Lear.
Right.
And of course, I could contact his colleague, because Roger was only able to work on the feet, whereas colleague would be able to take, remove it from other parts of the body. So, we just need. There's so many people that want to have them X-rayed or, MRI. But I tell them, I said, go to your doctor, tell them that you have something that, just to say it's really bothering me. I'm going to see if there's anything in there. And that way they have an X-ray or something. MRIs, of course, are very expensive, and they have to be covered by insurance. But again, this is very complicated because, the surgery is expensive. How do you tell the insurance company,
Yeah, you have a hard time doing that. Absolutely.
Right.
What I've also done for people to get a quick X-ray is to go to a chiropractor and say,
Right.
I've got this pain, because they'll zap you real quick. Most chiropractors will. But you're right. You need a surgeon to remove these things. Opus had one, but unfortunately he passed away up north,
Oh,
and yeah, yeah, and so that was sad to see that happen. But
but
he
you
did.
know,
Did you ever get that implant analyzed in any way, shape, or form?
Jesse's.
Yeah.
Oh yes, it's in the book. Excuse me, the reports in the book, and
Hmm.
um, it um, it had um, it looked like a little shard of glass, and there's
Hmm.
pictures in there. But when you magnify it, several. I forget how many. What do we use? A spectroscope.
Hmm.
It had a honeycomb uh,
Oh wow.
shape to it. Very strange, and it had magnesium and different
Unusual.
properties in there. Just yeah, and at that time in 1957, they were saying, at the report there, but they say this looked like it was manufactured at 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. But in back in 1957, they didn't do that with
Hmm.
glass.
Hmm.
It was the scientist of the Texas. It was at University of Texas, I believe.
Hmm.
Whitley Strieber had it taken over there.
Oh,
Um,
fantastic.
it was very interesting. I mean, I've got the whole report in there, and um, he could get it analyzed further, but to do that, they have to break it, and
Hmm.
he's just do that. You know,
Hmm.
Jesse feels it's enough. What I've been told, the report, it's enough right now. It's enough that he knows, it's not just a piece of
Yeah.
glass. And he had it in
Right.
his leg when he was a little boy, and he said when his mother would give him a bath, he would cover that part of his leg. It's like he didn't want her to see it, but he didn't know why.
Yeah.
Um, but it started bothering him because he said he would roll his sock down because it was on his shin. And I have a picture of him with the
Uh-huh.
sock rolled down because it would, it was right under, can you imagine, right under the skin, and it would rub on the sock.
Oh yeah.
That's why he wanted to have it removed. But lately, several years now, Les, I don't encourage people to remove them.
Hmm.
I tell them because what happened, and I've written about this, when it's removed, the aliens will come again and they will abduct them. And if they find that they're not there, they get upset. And so they will implant them again
Hmm.
in an area that they really remove, like say very close to their brain.
Right. Oh wow. Yeah.
People had very, very rough abductions after they had them removed. And I think, so I told people, unless it's bothering you, unless it's making you sick or you have a lot of pain, think about this
Right.
first,
Right.
because it will happen again. And I spoke with Whitley Strieber one time, and Strieber, and they sat in on my experiencer session at the Congress several years ago. And he had asked me that. He goes, "What do you think about having these removed?" And I just said, I'm getting to the point where I don't think they should. And if you remember, he has one in his ear,
Ah.
and he was going to have it removed. The thing moved when the
Yes.
doctor
Right.
could hear it, and he changed his mind. Well,
Hmm.
with John, with the double abduction, he changed his mind. He was going to have it removed. But then we had a doctor set up there in Tennessee, and he said, that was my agreement with my friend. I go, "What was your agreement?" He said, "If I leave it in there, they're going to give me information." And the information they've given him is he's applied for several patents. He's had, uh, what do you call them? He came up with these inventions. One of them was about using magnets up in space. So because magnets will not wear off or
Hmm.
wear out. The government paused that, him getting the patent for that, because they questioned him who were you talking to? Where did you get this information?
Oh
Because I
boy.
think they had that they had that information about magnets, and so they were wondering, you know, who did you talk to? Um, so it was really strange. It was, you know, it was back then. It was back then in the '90s when he couldn't get a patent for it. But he's had all these inventions. I mean, he's very brilliant, and you know, he has a high school diploma, and he feels that he's been given these gifts
Mhm.
through his abduction. And
Yeah,
he didn't
a lot.
realize it. He didn't realize it until he had his regression.
You know, I've heard so many stories like that where people have been, you know, had this type of experience. They've all of a sudden come up with ideas that they tried to get patented, and a lot of times all these patents disappear, and that's why they don't get them. The
Right,
Navy
right.
is a huge culprit, evidently, in gathering this type of information because they feel it's important, and so they want it, and you don't get it. You don't get it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's been many abductees that have information given to them. They feel like they've been, you probably heard
yeah.
this, downloaded with
Mhm,
information, mathematical equations. In fact, I'm going to be
mhm.
working with a brand new client who wants to know what he said. I know I'm being downloaded. I want to know what it means.
Yeah.
So, you know, it happens. I mean, it's very interesting.
Well, let me just back up 1 second because we lost a bit of our conversation when we were talking about hybrids. So I want to back up and then we'll wrap it up after that. Uh,
Okay.
So, what we were talking about when the feed got broken was that these hybrid situations are such that uh, we were conjecturing that it's necessary for the aliens to do this in order to have a survival mechanism, and that they're not necessarily here to take us over,
Right.
but the actual end product may be that in some crazy way, um, and that we don't have anything to gauge, what is a hybrid because we don't have alien DNA at this point. So
Exactly.
I just wanted to reiterate that before we went uh,
Sure.
um, off here. So tell us how can people contact the Zero Group and
But
to contact you?
they can go to my website. Everything is on there. It's hypnotherapist YvonneSmith.com. And they can send me a message from there. All the contact information is there. You know, they could if they like to come and, you know, join Zero meetings, have them write me. My email is there, so that's the best way to get in touch with me is through email. I'm checking it constantly in the day.
And Yvonne has two books out now. One is called Coronado, The President, the Secret Service, and Alien Abduction. And the other book in its second edition is called Chosen.
Yeah,
And and I love the cover of that second
thank
edition.
you.
That is
Yeah.
I don't know who came up with that, but that's a good cover.
They're both on Amazon and you can get them on Kindle. And I'm
Mhm.
working on a book about Zero because Zero's going to celebrate 30 years in January of 2022. So I'm writing a book about the history of Zero, and we're gonna have cases in there and so forth. And then of course the family connection book I'm working on as well. So because there's so much information that needs to be out there.
I tell you, Yvonne, I've known you for a long time. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to spend much time together over the
Uh,
years, but I look forward to seeing you in person one of these days. And I,
Absolutely, I
I
would
think,
love it.
oh, I thank you so much for being with me today. And
Thank you, Les. It's nice to see you, even on Zoom. It's nice to see you.
that's right. That's right. And just to remind the folks out there, I want to thank you for listening. And we're a nonprofit, Opus is, and you can go to our website at opusnetwork.org and hit that donate button, because we always need money to continue to do what we're doing. And
Oh, yeah.
again, thank you. And we'll see you again next time. Take care, y'all. Bye-bye. Thanks, Yvonne.
Thank you, Les. God bless. Good to
Bye-bye.
see you.
Good to see you too. Bye-bye.